So welcome back, gentlemen. Today I'm going to discuss one key understanding of system design concept, and that is called cache. Let's discuss few use cases. Like the first is scenario like the performance impact due to repeatedly calling of database. It has definitely a bad impact on your user experience, right? And then another scenario is like loading the static content from the web server or file server, which is far from your user location. This also give your user a bad experience, right? So for all these scenario or similar scenario, one solution you always have heard about that, use the cache or CDN. So this video is all about how and why you will use cache or CDN and how it is going to help you in taking the decision which help you to improve the performance, improve your user experience for your web services. Let's move on the topic now.
The first thing is, here is your web server, right? So I will define this as a web server. Yeah, so this, okay. Now another block, consider it as a cache. Okay, so this is something as a consider as a cache, and then third component which considered as a DB. Okay, DB, cache, and web server. Okay, now whenever web server sending any request to cache, first thing is they will check, does they have, if data exist in cache, then they will return data from there. If there is no data, if there is no data in cache, then first they will save response of query to database into cache. Okay, and then this will be returned to return data to the web server. Okay, yeah.
Okay, good morning everyone. So let's continue our caching topic, right? So now the next topic which I would like to focus here is when we should consider using cache. So there are few standard points we should always remember before considering any cache, and those points are when you have data which is read frequently but modified infrequently. I mean to say data is not modified frequently and your system is read frequently or read biased. In that case, caching that data is make more sense, even it is more practical for you because it has cost, right? So cache versus cost will justifiable in that scenario. As I explained you right now only that it has a cost. So definitely you cannot store infinite data in your cache. Meaning that when you want to store new data, there are very frequent scenario when you need to, expire some data from your existing cache, and that policy is called expiration policy. So there are very frequent requirement for you to define proper expiration policy for your caching. Another key point which you should consider while considering the cache, using a cache or not, is consistency. This involves keeping the data stored and the cache in sync. Inconsistency can happen because data modifying operations on the data store and cache are not in single operation, single transaction. When scaling across multiple regions, maintenance consistency between the data store and cache is challenging, right? For further detail, I can share you one new video reference in this video so that you can go in detail and try to understand how Facebook has used scaling of main cache at their requirement. Okay, so that is what you will do later. Now, when I'm talking about the eviction policy, there are many eviction policies very famous. Okay, so before going for that, let me define what is called eviction policy. So once the cache is full, any request to add items to the cache might cause existing items to be removed. This is called cache eviction. Okay. There are few standard policies just like LRU, least recently used. I think most of the coding interview, probably here and there, people are asking about the LRU concept. Even many people are expecting you should implement roughly, not the foolproof concept, but most, basic feature in LRU in coding interview. So you should do the practice for that. So LRU is the most popular cache eviction policy. Okay. Other eviction policies are LFU, least frequently used, first in, first out, FIFO, which is also FIFO, yeah, and many more. So we will explain you all these eviction policies in detail in another video. Another, if you remember, while discussing about the caching, I also told you there is a concept called content delivery network, CDN. So if I define the CDN, a CDN is a network of geographical dispersed servers used to deliver static content. Are you confused? I don't think so. It is very simple. Mostly you have heard about, like in many scenarios, when you want to, improve the user experience for your website, usually you are putting many static content, especially images, videos, CSS file, JavaScript file, etc. into CDN. So I think you have heard this kind of scenario, right? I will explain this CDN. Just give me 1 minute, maybe next few minutes. Yeah, in next few minutes. Okay. So the same way I will discuss, as I discussed earlier about the cache, when to use cache, I will discuss when to use CDN. But roughly, if you want to understand any static content which is not frequently changing, and it is helpful to put that content more closer to your user, in that scenario, CDN is the most useful cache type available for your problem. Okay. So let's discuss another concept here, how CDN has. Okay, so I will explain you in a diagram, but just give me a small time so that I will pick my camera and show you what kind of a sketch, how CDN, what is the basic structure of CDN. For now, you just try to focus to understand when you should consider using CDN. Please note that CDN has a cost. CDN are run by third-party provider, and you are charged for data transfers in and out of the CDN. Caching infrequently used assets provided no significant benefit because that is infrequently changing, right? So you should consider moving them out of the CDN. Setting an appropriate cache expiry for time-sensitive content. Setting a cache expiry time is very important. That is called time to live, TTL. The cache expiry time should neither be too long nor too short. If it is too long, the content might no longer be fresh. If it is too short, it can cause repeated reloading of content from origin servers to the CDN. How CDN fallback is working. So you should consider how your website or application copes with CDN failure. If there is a temporary CDN outage, clients should be able to detect the problem and request resource from the origin. You should consider how your website, let me repeat again, I think, because this CDN fallback is very important. Please try to understand, because most of the time when you have you have to invalidate your CDN data, you need this mechanism. So you should consider how your website or application copes with CDN failure. So suppose CDN is failed, right? There is no data which your client is looking for is present in CDN. What do you do? If there is a temporary CDN outage, client should be able to detect the problem and request resource from the origin where it is present actually, because this is a very temporary situation where CDN has no data. So in that case, they go to that location and try to fetch that content. Okay. Now next thing is invalidating files. You can remove a file from CDN before it expires by performing one of the following operations. Invalidate the CDN object using APIs provided by CDN vendors. Use object versioning to serve a different version of the object. To version an object, you can add a parameter to the URL, such as version number. For example, version number 2 is added to the query string image.png. This version is equal to 2. So image.png is my resource, and I want its version 2 here. So that's why I can put image.png v is equal to 2, right? So that can be, this is the way you are mentioning the version in your URL. Okay, so I will explain one, I will put this picture also, and you can see that in this picture, yeah, so we have a user layer. In user layer, we have a client like web browser or mobile app. Then we have a CDN here. You can see that this CDN is holding the static content, most of the static content which is required by your system. and which is not changing frequently, right? Now, your web browser is contacting load balancer, which is your public IP for your system. So this web browser or mobile app is connecting with load balancer. Load balancer is just delegating or forwarding you that call to your server, either server 1 or server 2. It depends on how your load balancer algorithm is working, what kind of algorithm is implemented in your load balancer. Accordingly, they will choose either server 1 or server 2. Then server have some data requirement which they will fetch from database. It depends that if that data is present in cache, they will fetch from the cache. If that is not present, then definitely they will go through the DB, cache it, and then return it. So this is the fundamental way of exploring basic structure, how we are using CDN, where we are using cache, how this cache is improving my overall user experience with this system. So yeah, so I think fundamentally, like theoretically, fundamental concept of cache is this much. Of course, this is very brief introduction of cache. I will explain you in much detail about these. Explain you much detail about the cache in separate video, and I will share that video link in this video. So for now, I think brief introduction of cache is completed, and I hope you can understand briefly. You are able to understand briefly when to use cache, how to use cache, what is the cache which we are putting in front of DB, and what is the cache we are considering as a CDN, where CDN is useful, how to use the CDN, where normal cache, cache over the DB is important, and when you should use that cache in front of DB. So these are the basic structure of your uses of caching in your web server, or in your overall web-based any service. In any service, you should use cache or CDN in this way. In detail, we will share in next or separate video, and I will share that video link in this video. For now, I'm closing this video here only. Thank you for listening me patiently, and I hope you learned at least few new things with this video. If you learned something, please subscribe, subscribe and comment to the video. I hope I can see you in the next video. तब तक के लिए धन्यवाद, अपना ख्याल रखें, और आपसे आशा करूँगा कि आप अगले वीडियो में हमें फिर से ज्वाइन करेंगे. थैंक यू, बाय, टेक केयर.